You're grinding every day. Long hours, no backup, no accountability. That ends now. The Empower Solopreneur Mastermind gives you one simple advantage, a weekly power session that turns isolation into domination. Every Friday morning on Zoom, you'll get real coaching and real feedback to make real moves. Join a group of driven professionals in a program designed for solopreneurs and people working at home. Stop getting stuck. Start scaling. Seats are limited. Lock in yours today at modernobserver.com/empower-mastermind.
We are lighting the candle, a world that works. I'm Bill Karel, and I'm here with my really faithful good friend, Jan Jeremiah. The two of us just enjoy each other's company. In fact, we were talking for about 10 minutes before we decided to start the conversation here and record it, which we do often. But the thing is that we really haven't spoken audibly to each other since last week. We've shared several other communications going back and forth. But just so you all know, Jan is one of the people in life that I like to touch base with frequently, simply because she has a lot of street smart as well as book smart. And quite frankly, she's just a great person. So here we are. We get a chance to chat with each other for a little while. And I guess what we decided to do when I said, let's go ahead and record, we're talking about, what's going on in the world. Generally, we didn't talk about anything specifically, but I think you at home can probably zoom in on what is going on in the world, or what you think is going on in the world based on where you get your information. But there's many, many different ways to get updated on situations that are going on. I'm not really sure that we're going to ever recover media to the point where it's got enough credibility that we'll just listen to a report and believe it. I think that ship has long since sailed. But I think in the meantime, when we understand all the things that possibly can be going wrong, or the things that could be up in the air, and how they are for people that are right up close to what's actually happening. I don't know about you, Jan. I just feel blessed.
I feel, could be, and we were talking about this before we got on, just what I have going on. I think I feel overwhelmed at points, to be honest. I think I feel overwhelmed with everything I have personally going on, and then with everything that's going on in a more global sense or national sense, and trying to make space for both, and then the other thing is, I was just on with a group of people, and we were talking about, and I think we've spoken about this so many times here, is like, what can we do? What can I do, for example, to somehow have some sort of impact on my own life, and then hopefully on and on the lives of others.
Yeah.
What can I do? And I think that I was going back and forth yesterday on via text with a friend of mine in California who I hadn't spoken to in a long time. And I just messaged her out of the blue, and I just said, how you doing, or whatever. And basically she came back with the same comment. She's like, I think these times, I'm doing okay, or I'm doing the best doing okay and the best I can, with everything that's going on in the world. And, and then she said, and she's a birth doula. So she helps deliver babies all the time. It's kind of like a nice, what I think of as kind of like a nice happy field to be in. You're usually, it's obviously with people who want their babies or whatever. And so she's quite busy. And, but, she's like, we each just do our small part. Like that's. And I told her a little bit about what I'm up to, and I feel the same way. I just keep on going. Like we each keep doing what we can.
Well, see, here's an interesting perspective on it. Back in the days when we literally had three major networks, newspapers that got published once a day, radios that were up to the minute in terms of whatever was on the AP wire, life was different. It was absolutely different. It's increasingly hard to carve out a space of somewhere where you can be undisturbed by the reports. And I mean, not react to the reports, but how about just not hear them for a while? You know? And I'm finding that, I mean, for this year, with all the traveling that I did, and even being home for the last 2 weeks, taking care of myself, I just don't watch the news. I don't watch it at all. And I'll watch a brief YouTube video that supposedly, is coming from wherever it is that we're talking about is occurring. And at this point, that could be about 15 different places around the globe. And I think in the meantime, I don't know how it is for many people, but my friends on Facebook, I'm seeing some that are really struggling right now. They're struggling with trying to find, like you said, what can we possibly do? And I was raised like there's three, wells that I have, and it's called time, talent, and treasure. Those three things are where I go to. And if I have excess in any of the three, then I've got an opportunity to do something with that, as my number of trips around the sun gets greater, I'm less interested in giving my time away, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to just give away treasure,
And, I think one of the things you said, I think part of I was talking about this with a number of people, is that, part of it is this sort of like, I read stuff and I'm like, is this really true? Like, are these really the facts? And what is the information I'm getting? So I think I kind of filter everything through that of late, as you mentioned, like what's reliable and what's not reliable. And I'm very aware of that when I read stuff. I do agree with you. I think there is I don't think it's healthy to constantly be bombarded by these messages all the time. I think our nervous systems just can't handle it. There's constant, like, what you might call spike in cortisol or stress, like all of a sudden you read something and that angst or that, your heart begins to race, and all of a sudden, what you might call the worry gene kicks in, or the catastrophizing gene. And all of a sudden you're on a train down some, sort of, you're on a speed train, your thoughts and your emotions are on some sort of speed train. And so I think that you need to carve out that time. And I think that that's when I turn to, like, that's what I mean when I say, what can I do and what influence can I make? And it might be one, not engaging with that. Like, so not watching, and at least not watching, and not paying attention to those kind of like flashes on my phone, which come up with news brief every other second, because, they're constantly, it's like on the main screen, like, it's like, okay, news flash. And I'm just like, and not paying attention to that. But it's also like, what, like, concrete things can I do that will enhance my life, enhance the other and everyone else's, like, and so What conversations can I participate in that are valuable?
Right.
Who can I help that might need, something that I can provide? Um, and going from there because, yeah, because otherwise I think it's very depressing. I think it's like because otherwise you walk around and you're completely overwhelmed and depressed.
Yeah. Well, I have a takeaway about that, and I think that increasingly, I think we're starting to listen to whatever's going on with a sitcom frame of mind, right? Like we know all the players now. We know whose reputations are what. We know, these are things that are solidly built in through, hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars of marketing and saying things over and over until they only have to use a word or two to like get us right to where they want us before they give us the next little bit of information. And so for me, if that's the case, it's like, how well do I know, um, you know, the characters on the Big Bang, or how well do I know the characters on Tim the Toolman Taylor. And so the familiarity and what has happened in terms of taking things that are extremely important and overwhelming us with minutia and details and, for lack of a better word, just crap every day. It's not meaningful. It doesn't create anything in the world. It's just people wanting to get attention and wanting to get money for getting attention and therefore wanting to get more attention. So I've had a lot of fun. My favorite response to emails today is pretty much unsubscribe, please. I'm unsubscribing from an average of 20 to 30 emails every day or two. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not getting them anymore, but sooner or later, some of them go away.
Mm-hmm.
I've started doing a little bit of research into a couple of pieces of equipment that I'd like to have for my home. And now I'm inundated.
Oh. I was noticed how you noticed my manic laugh. It's like that because that's so true. What I find I do is I'm really careful about what comes across like my feeds of like Facebook feeds and not because I want my opinion to be like totally reinforced. Like I mean that's not my purpose in it. Because basically what you like and acknowledge is what you're given more of. And so that's not the purpose of it. For me, it's the majority of things that I tend to have passed down my screen are things that are, I don't know, that are much more about mindset or self development, that are much more, um, poetry, like anything that I find, inspirational or um, maybe what I would call life enhancing,
Yes.
um, versus just being fed that negativity and that sort of alarmist kind of panic kind of energy at all times. Uh, and that's my way. That's like my equivalent of the email. It's like, can I filter out all this stuff? Like I never was good at handling the mudslinging when it came or like when it came to election time with, people who would like either that or health stuff. Like I get a lot of health posts, at different health topics and everything and from people I follow, which are really like top-notch people, which I love. But otherwise, I've always gotten very tired of that whole mudslinging when it came to like election time or opinions because I'm just like I couldn't handle like the anger toward like people would kind of express toward each other. Like it just seemed to be serving any purpose because it's one thing to have a conversation with someone and then you have a discussion or whatever, but to have one-sided just like negativity or anger or fear coming out at you, to me, I'm like, what does that really give me? Because I'm not getting an exchange with anybody in response to that.
Right. Yeah. At some point, and that's exactly what I'm talking about is that it's, you said during election times. Well, it's 24/7, 365 days a year now.
Yes.
It used to work to get people to send in money and make donations to campaigns and stuff by getting people upset. I mean, that's usually what you see is that if there's an opportunity to get people upset, then again, like myself, what are we going to do? We're going to send a check somewhere. But I don't send checks to people who badmouth other people. I just won't do that. And I'm really interested in listening to the conversations where something's being built or an idea is being fleshed out, or there's a future facing um, endeavor that's going on by people that I don't know necessarily. And I enjoy that. I really do. I like watching technology videos, YouTube videos where people are discussing how they're solving different problems. And they're discussing, what they're doing to take something we've all decided is just a mundane pain in our what, and lived with it. And they're saying, guess what? You just really don't have to worry about this. And oh, by the way, um, it's interesting watching people engage in it, especially if they're taking a real scientific approach. And I think from that perspective, a program like MythBusters, which I think is equally as gratifying as eating cotton candy and probably just about as good for you. It doesn't change the world, but it's also people doing something to test a theory.
Yeah, I went to a wonderful talk on Saturday given by a guy um, who's I guess he's like the chief scientific officer for a supplement, a company that makes some supplements, not a huge repertoire of supplements, but targeted supplements. And who spoke on antioxidants or carotenoids and their effects or their influence in athletes in high impact sports.
Right.
And I mean, it was really good. I mean, he was great. And it was so nice. I mean, first of all, obviously, because it was science and I love science. So to me, it was great, but he was really good. And what he had to say was so valuable and it was so interesting. And it wasn't based on, I mean, it was definitely not based on like, oh, I want people to buy these supplements. And it was definitely not targeting. It was purely information. Like people should be aware of this. Um, because he wasn't talking about concussions. He was talking about something called CTE, which is probably basically a form of encephalitis that happens from repetitive impacts on the head. Like not concussions, but like being hit in the head multiple times and cognitive decline. And brain health or whatever. And so it was like so super cool. And it was so nice to hear him because he was I want to say he was so approachable and so, I mean, it was an amazing, amazing presentation. And, and I think when you talked about science and it was purely for like, how can I let people know this just so people know it and then maybe can somehow make a change in their life if it seems to be applicable and if they make a choice, like if they choose to.
Right.
And that's where I think that one is you're kind of working with people's autonomy and people's right to educate and to get informed and to take care of themselves and to take better care of their families. And I think no matter what we do is if we can go, when I go out and I give classes or I teach, it's so that people feel better about themselves or feel better in their own lives or in their own bodies so that they navigate their world better. So that they go out and they have, everybody they interact with or how they navigate their day is better.
That it actually, I think that there's a deficit of us engaging in a way that's useful. And I hear what you're saying. That is the most rewarding expenditure of time that we can possibly do. And that's to give somebody either some education or something to get further interested in for themselves in their own lives. And when you do something that makes lives better for people, or at least opens their eyes that there's an option, this may be something they hadn't heard of before, it's very rewarding. I mean, it's a day well spent,
Yeah, it is. Think that, I gave a class recently on heart health. And at the end, I said, if you were to go back to anything I just said over the past, whatever, 45 minutes or a half an hour or whatever, and I said, and if you could think about doing one thing, and I'm not having, one thing that would somehow enhance your well-being.
Yes.
I mean, could be drinking more water, getting more sleep. I mean, if you could think about doing one thing, that was all I wanted for people. Like, they weren't going to remember the zillion facts I told them. And I told them not to even bother taking notes because I was going to give a PDF at the end. So I was like, don't even worry about writing anything down unless it helps you remember. But I said, if you just want to listen, that's fine, because I'm going to give you a handout at the end. Because I want you to, because I don't want you to have to be focused on what, oh my gosh, I missed that kind of thing, which is what I get hung up on. But it was like, if you could do one thing for yourself that will make you healthier, then I've really then I'm happy. But I don't need you to make 1,000 different changes. And I don't think you should set yourself up for that, because most of the time you're going to fail anyway if you decide you're going to change 100 different things in your life, because no one can, that's too overwhelming for everybody. So I'm like, just one thing. So maybe
do
one thing you can do, and maybe what we're talking about, maybe it's okay, for for this amount of time every day, I'm going to disconnect. I'm not going to check my phone. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to put it on airplane mode. I'm going to, or I'm going to shut down my computer and I'm not going to get online for whatever, or I'm not going to schedule one more meeting for that day. Or, but I'm like, one thing that you could do to go out and say, okay, well, I'm going to give myself a little bit of space. I'm going to press the pause button. And I'm going to pause. You can push play when you're done if you want. You might choose not to push play.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a big mental change that happens when mobility is in question, and I've had for the last month and a half, a real opportunity to see what it feels like, to have little pockets of exercise time, and being able to fine tune where I'm moving and the type of motion that I'm engaging in, so that it is enhancing my strength in particular parts of my body, as opposed to constantly just being in pain when I just try to stand up or bend over. And what I'm thinking in terms of is how that starts to recede into the background as more confidence is there. And the other interesting perspective on that is that I've had many little wins. They're not anything engaging with other people. It's just engaging with myself at this point and challenging myself to do things in a particular way that's not just bullying through something and perpetuating, the acute nature of my injury. And with that in mind, it's kind of exciting to be able to accomplish some things that I couldn't do 6 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. And sometimes, uh, yeah, I mean, I think that's great. And I think that there is something that's obviously true. There is a reward mechanism that happens,
Yeah.
because I think then it becomes almost self propagating because you see the improvement. So you want to do it more because you see that, or, whether it be a visual appearance or a strength or some sort of measure for yourself of like internal measure of like, oh my gosh, this is now easier for me. Oh my gosh, you know, I'm a big, like, I increase time on stuff. So, for example, if I have a vibration plate that I got, which is basically just a platform, it's electronic that vibrates. It's supposed to be good for bone density, for circulation,
Oh, good.
and I've been increasing the time that I do it. So I'm always like, okay, I'm going to be overly cautious maybe, but that's who I am. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll start out with this amount. And then every week I'll increase it to more time, or slowly I'll increase it to more time. So I've been doing that. And the things I notice about the changes for me, which it's not about what anybody else sees because I don't know that anybody else would notice anything,
Exactly.
but I notice it.
That's important.
And so then I'm just like, okay, well, I notice there's a difference. And I think when we look at whether it be some sort of physical practice or sort of meditation practice, and I say practice or whatever, I think that that's when we start to see whether something is influenced. It's like when I know when I either consciously, whether it be, you could call meditation or just focusing on my breath, whatever you want to call it, quiet, pausing time. Um, I notice how I feel versus when I don't do it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'll be like, I really handle my life so much better when I do this.
Right. So you know what I wonder? It seems like there's an objective approach that can be taken with this line of thinking as well. Because I don't know about you, Jan, but when I'm focused on something that I'm doing that's making a difference, even if it's just for myself, I'm not entertaining thoughts about the unfairness of the world, you know? I'm not entertaining thoughts of what should and shouldn't be happening out there. All of which I have no direct corroboration of anything. So why drive myself nuts?
Yeah, I think I hear you, Bill. And I think, but for me, I think what ends up happening is I just end up hearing whatever that is, whatever that's outside myself that's going on, and having a different attitude. Like I have a much more positive kind of outlook in the fact, like I'm much more apt to go to the space, okay, what can I do? Or who can I help? And I spend a lot less time in the pity party or feeling sorry for myself or becoming depressed or hopeless. There seems to be much more of my I have a much better ability to go into a feeling of hope
Right.
or possibility. Even if that's just helping my neighbor and making my neighborhood better, or if it's, you know, making the lives of people I know better, that are not in my immediate, let's say, vicinity as far as my house goes. Like I'm talking about like my physical neighborhood there, but maybe it's beyond that physical neighborhood. It's my virtual neighborhoods that I'm in.
Right.
But I'm much more capable of going into situations or encounters with other people with a much better attitude than when I'm not, when I don't do stuff like that, when I don't engage with myself or, um, and some of that it takes discipline, it takes dedication to keep going back and saying, okay, well, I'm not sure this is really making a difference at the moment, but I'm going to still commit to my 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day and continue doing it. I mean, I think eventually you do. I think you see the effects, but in the beginning, sometimes it's hard because they don't, things don't happen immediately. And I think, it's very easy for us to get, but I think on some level, we always feel better.
I agree. And the other thing too is that though you and I are not thrown to go and get the latest information on what's going on in this issue or that issue, we do speak to people that seem to be living with it up to their eyeballs, and it's hard for them not to, to put out into the world what they think is wrong with what's going on, and attempting, or in some cases, successfully enrolling us into that point of view. So that when we leave that conversation, we've got a gift that keeps on giving after we've said bye-bye, I'll talk to you soon. But I think it takes a real rigor to be able to, empathetically listen and take on board, but then not own, to be able to set it down and say, I understand this is what's concerning you. And at the moment, I really have nothing more to add or anything to give you or anything to take away, but I just hope that you are in a better space if that's where you want to be. But I do believe that there are some people that don't want to be in a better space. They really love just kind of constantly flailing and floundering around in, my life is so hard, or the world is so unfair, and how can I possibly have a good life if people over in Biafra are starving, it's
Well, I think, yeah, I think there are some people, and I speak to people, sometimes I agree with you, who don't want to get out of, the one I hear a lot is, I have no time. You talked about time. I have no time.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I don't have any time. And that's why I said, well, what is the one thing, or, a few minutes a day or whatever, because I understand that people feel time constrained. Okay, I won't ask them where they're spending their time. I mean, I could, but because, I think, we'll look at how much time you spend screening on your phone. I mean, that's probably, we all probably do that, probably waste a whole lot of time, and so even if I don't go there, I still think there are opportunities and time and to get a lot of what we want done. If we choose to. And I'm with you there in the fact that I think some people just like to say that, I have no time. Like any other reflexive thought, what I call like automatic thinking.
Yeah.
Like anything else we say to ourselves, that's like a big one. I have no time. I'm too busy.
Yeah, essentially what they're basically saying is, I'm not going to be responsible for my time and question how I'm spending it, or look to see whether it's really, serving me. What I'm going to do is, I'm not going to let anything else in, and I'm still going to waste probably 80% of the time I'm awake doing nothing anyway.
Well, and I think you said one thing that really resonated me, and decide whether it's actually serving me. Because I think they're afraid that if they were to realize that it's not serving them, they might have to make some sort of change. Like that. And for most people, that's horrifying. It's like, oh, you mean I have to make a change? Like, like the word change is like whatever. It's not a 4-letter word, but it's a 4-letter word. And it's like that feeling, you know what I mean? Just more than a 4-letter word, but it's like, oh my gosh, I might have to make a change. Like, we talk about that a lot in the health world, in my world, it's like, okay, I might have to change what I'm eating. I might have to, change how I move or I exercise. Like, oh my gosh, I might have to change. I have to
be responsible.
Right. I might have to be responsible. But I think that's when you ask people to kind of look at where they're spending their time, or how they, or whatever, I think it's that fear of change. Like they might have to do something. is scares people.
Yeah, and the automatic response is I can't
I can't, right? I can't.
or no, you know?
I can't. Yeah, is it from
If you've studied Buddhism just a little bit, and I have too, and the fundamental tenet to Buddhism is being responsible for all of it, you know, because you are all of it, and all of it is in you. So the answer to every question is always yes. Every question's answer is yes, and
well,
that can give you goosebumps if you really just think about it. Just try saying yes to everything.
well, because basically you're saying that whatever happens in life, like it's yes is basically being present. I've got to be present for it. If this is happening, this is happening. I may not want it to happen. May wish it was not happening, but it's happening. So therefore I say yes. And I'm not saying yes, I want it. I'm saying yes, it's here.
Well, and like you said, it may just be like saying present, you know, yes.
Yes, present. It's here. It's happening. You know, we know a little bit about what's going on in each other's life, quite a bit about what's going on in our prospective lives, each other. We know a lot about each other. And then we might sit there and, you know, do either of us wish that some of that was happening? No. We wish we were not here. And it was not, basically, it was not our life. It was not us. But the bottom line is it is. And so, Buddhism says that, okay, it's here. It's here.
Well,
So,
I think that there's a corollary to the responsibility that it takes to say yes, or to say, let me take a look at my calendar. And as if everything that's in your calendar is sacrosanct, you know? I put it there, so therefore it is more important than anything else in the world that I didn't know about at the time. Now that's just ridiculous thinking. But that's what we do.
mhm.
Once we've written it down, man, it might as well be in a stone tablet somewhere.
Yep, it's one of those 10 commandments.
Or shall not change your calendar.
That's how nothing.
Put anything in that you hadn't already agreed to.
That's right. And so, yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, but yet on the other hand, that every now and then when I talk to people and depending on the person, I know people who like literally will block out or like, and block off certain hours in their calendar to not like, to basically, this is a time I won't have meetings. This is like, whatever, this is pause time or whatever, my disconnecting time. And so, I've been trying to carve out, like, I'm not good at not work, and not scheduling myself, let's say 7 days a week. And I've been holding one day a week as like basically like I don't want to get online. I don't want to have a meeting. I don't care if it's one meeting for an hour. It tends to disrupt my day and get me into that working brain. And not that I don't work. I might work and work on stuff on that day, but I don't want to have to like I don't want an appointment. Like I don't want something on my calendar that is scheduled.
Funny.
And so I've been very focused and I had I had not the opportunity. I had a meeting that I usually have a planning meeting on Friday, and the person who I have it with couldn't make it this week. And so she asked me about Saturday, and Saturday was a crazy busy day for me. And I said, and I was honest, I said, I'm really trying not to do it, like have any meetings at all on Sunday, like at all. Like that is, and and she was like, well, find another day during the week. Like, I don't want you to have to give that up because I've been really focused on that. It's like I try, I have to have a client meeting. I try to do it another day of the week. I just like, I need that space for myself and for Tonka, who's like, a family day. my family, my canine family.
Nice.
So I'm like, but and I've never been very successful at doing that. But lately, I feel like it has become a sacred, like it is sacred time to me.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if people were to think about that, like just even that word to me lately has been really like I've been playing or really spending a lot of time with that word sacred. Like, could you think of like that, maybe that pause that you take from electronics as being sacred time? Could you think about whatever, the exercises you can do or whatever the thing as sacred time?
Yeah. I think if we regarded every minute of every day
It's absolutely. No,
as
yes.
the antithesis of no.
Right, exactly. Exactly. No, then it would be truly amazing if everybody consider more time than just that, whatever they're doing. Like, if somebody I was speaking to who, or maybe I was reading it, and I think I was reading it, and she was talking about the fact that when she got pregnant and she was getting ready to have her baby, she decided that she wasn't going to go back to work, that she was going to be a stay at home mom. And how the first, like, whatever, how many months, how much, like the whole idea of she realized what a blessing it was that she got to be there and everything. And then she said she found herself like all of a sudden, like it would become a task. It would become like you have to have to take the baby for a walk or to the park. It was like a task she had to cross off a list. And even if it was just a mental list, for me, it's always a written list, but it's a list. And then she said all of a sudden she stepped back and she thought to herself, oh my gosh, like, how did what I wanted to do or something that I considered almost like this gift become this, this item on a to do list, like this task of losing, all its sacredness and all its value to something I just had to cross off and get done.
Right.
And I think it was I'm remembering it was an article or a blog, and she said all of a sudden, like, it stopped me. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I get to do this. I choose to do this. And how it shifted, like, she kind of realized what she was doing and shifted her perspective and shifted her attitude around it. So I think that sometimes, like, when you talk about saying yes, you know, all day, or looking at each moment as if it was sacred, maybe if we looked at, like, like you said, each moment as sacred, like, looking at, like, oh my gosh, I have to cook dinner. As maybe it's like, oh my gosh, I get to cook dinner. I have enough food. I was able to buy that food.
Right.
I'm going to make something I enjoy. Um, I, and look at the sacredness of those tasks or those things. I don't like to even call them tasks, you know, but for lack of a better word right now, I would say tasks. But just those things that that we do every day, you know.
Yeah, it's a capsule of intention and effort, you know? So
That's right.
it's my wife and I were talking about how human beings just tend to like take stuff that's extraordinary and ordinary it, you know? And it's the same kind of a thing that you're talking about, that there's this blessed occurrence that occurs, and it's just like such a joy. And it comes along with a glimmer, you know, that you just feel lit up that this is going on. And it's just, a surprise and just a wonder. And it's cool to now it's kind of mundane.
But it's really interesting when you start to look at different, different, like mundane things, and you might call it mundane, the ordinary things that you do every day, and realize the gift they hold, or, I mean, I don't like to, I'm always like, I was never crazy about the quote, well, there are people who have it worse kind of thing.
Yeah.
'Cause I just don't like that phrase. But when you think and you navigate the world where, like, you can get up and look at the sky is unbelievably blue here. Well, there are people that never get to see that sky.
Right.
There are people that, right now are in places where, devastation is happening, kind of thing. And, where you go in and, you turn on water and there are still millions of people all over the world that don't have, clean running water, like, so that whole idea, that's pretty miraculous to think that we have, water,
Absolutely.
so those things which all of a sudden take on there's an appreciation for them.
There's an interesting dynamic at work. And the question is, are you going to generate a conversation for other people to find themselves in? Or are you going to add color to someone else's conversation? Or are you going to ignore someone else's conversation? There's a story that I was told about a guy who was brought into a hospital room, and there was a younger man who was over by the window, and all of a sudden, the man asked the younger man, "What can you see? What's going on out there in the world?" And the younger man told him amazing stories about kids playing baseball across the street in the town square, and that was a wedding that was going on, and so many loved ones gathered together and just enjoying the sunny day and how beautiful it was and everything. And so one point, the man, weeks, months later, after hearing these beautiful renditions of what the man saw out the window, goes in for an operation. He comes back hours later to find that the young man's bed was empty. And he says to the nurse, what happened to John? And she said, well, John passed. John had a terminal cancer, and you got to be with him his last days on earth. And he said, well, that breaks my heart, but would it be possible if I could have John's bed? And when he got over, she said, no reason why you can't, if that makes you happy. He got over to John's bed and he looked out the window, and it was a brick wall of the building next door. He said, oh, by the way, John was blind. So he was with this man for months. And what did John do? Did he spend his time complaining about the unfairness of the world? No, he actually improved this man's life to the point where he couldn't wake up in the morning without thinking about, I can't wait to hear what's going on out John's window today.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need a lot more Johns in the world, actually. People who are willing to talk about and predict the goodness of people showing up. That's going to, the old love conquers all kind of a thing, but not in a Pollyanna sense. How about just in a common courtesy, common respect, common sense, common decency? If we made those things common again and not rewarded people who are constantly tearing things down and saying horrible things, that upset us, and we pay them money to tell us more.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It just, yeah, I mean, I think this has always been, an issue anyway, and now even more so. Um, with the things that are publicized and put out there, and basically therefore people are paid for, and that is like the whole promoting of stuff that's negative, or like, and not giving any airtime to the amazing people out there in the world doing amazing things,
Absolutely.
you know. And I think that that's truly, um because I think that if you want to, yeah, and that's always been an issue, but I think now, so more now, so that people are so much more connected all the time, and that's all, and all they hear is the negative. But I think that there's a lot of people out there doing some really great work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we really need to celebrate. I mean, those are the true leaders. Those are the people that are making the world better at the level of human being. And they're not trying to talk us into anything. They're too busy doing it. And it's a life's work for them, not something they're doing to get attention.
Yeah.
You can just picture the joy in John's heart when he had this man come in and he's in the bed next to him and he can't see out the window. And John's got this opportunity. In my heart, I think the most blessed time that you can spend is to freely share yourself with another human being when you're absolutely sure they can't do a damn thing for you. You know what I mean? I'm doing this in order for you to do that for me.
Mm-hmm. There's no agenda involved.
Right.
They're doing something, they're sharing something with you just because they really genuinely care about you. Or yeah. I mean, I think, right now I've been thinking a lot about, upbringing, and, what our parent, sort of like, what our parents do and what they tell us, and how much that is based on, not in a negative way, but it's based on their own experience. And therefore, I think, or just in general, I think that that's how people navigate the world in general. It's based on their own experience. And when they share something with you, it's, whether it be negative, like a caution, or a help, it's being filtered through whatever their own experience was. And I've come to realize that more and more as I've gotten older. It's like you realize that it's not like they wished harm to you necessarily, but they just were coming at it from what they knew. And from what they knew, they had to protect you, or they should warn you about certain things. And they can say that to you or whatever. But then you have to, like, take it in and decide what you're going to do. And maybe depending on the age, you listen because you're young or whatever. But I think that you have to remember that, the when someone shares something of legitimate, like, sort of like just for the ability of trying to share something with you,
Yeah.
tell you a little bit more about who they are and their own experience, just so you get a better understanding of who they are, and then maybe are better able to share more about yourself.
I love it.
Mhm.
You know, it's, it can be trivial. It can be, sometimes even silly, but at the end of the day, it's honest and it's authentic.
Mm.
And I think with that said, a lot of the conversations that we have revolve around, um, where to go and what to do and how to combat the evil disempowerment in the world. Sometimes it's just change the subject.
And I was gonna continue on this whole like sort of media news thing, and I was gonna be just change the channel. Change the channel or unplug.
It's the sitcom listener. That's not real. None of that stuff's got anything to do with me. On to the next channel. Where's the cooking channel? What's going on here?
I know. It's like, like what's happening on the pet network.
Exactly.
But I think it is. Sometimes you do have to change the channel. Yeah, you just have to, or like I said, unplug.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest part for me is to go online and see social media posts from people that I love, but they lost their blooming mind. They're so upset by something. The words that come out of their mouth are not like anything I've ever heard them say in real life. And I'm giving them permission to go crazy. Okay. I'm not judging. I'm not even interested in changing their mind. But I do know that these are intelligent people. They just got to change the damn channel. They got to get more information than they're getting right now if it's starting to affect their daily life.
Well, I think that if they want to do that first of all, for like, for a certain amount of time, not that I'm saying they should, for a certain amount of time a day. Second of all, I think they have to realize that whatever lashing out they're doing or however they're expressing, maybe they feel it serves a purpose. But if they do feel it serves a purpose, what purpose is it serving? Like, is it serving me to get so upset and to kind of perpetuate? Is it helping anybody else to kind of like keep, like, voice my opinion? Is it like promoting any change? Was it helping other people live a better life? And maybe I'm being like too basic for it. Like it's just too basic, but I think you have to start asking your questions. Like, is it serving? It doesn't have value in any way.
Well, what's interesting is you're offering a right brain solution to a left brain problem. Almost never is there any rationale or any logic or anything like that. It's a visceral, in the body upset. They probably can't even name. You know what I mean? Which is why they're doing what they can to lash out at whatever they're lashing out at. And I'm suspicious that it's not doing them any good.
No, I mean, I agree with you. And I agree with you. It is. And, as you said it, you're right. But I think it is a very visceral, very physical reaction that happens. And so that's why, pausing and disconnecting and actually asking yourself questions of like, okay, what is this really about for me? What is it triggering me? Where does it come? Like, where does it come from? Like, what has my experience been?
Yeah.
All these kind of questions that you ask yourself based on a response that you're having.
What I really love about what you're saying is, folks, do yourself a favor and schedule an intellectual time out from your upset. Give yourself a fighting chance to get back in the game a little bit by using your training and using your adultness and those sort of things, as opposed to just responding to it the way that a 5-year-old would. And if you stop and think about it, it's kind of like that's how many of the responses are. They're unthinking. They're not the kind of thing that people would say in person. They wouldn't want to be responsible for other people being able to identify them after the words came out and no place to hide.
I obviously agree with that, Bill. But I think the other thing that happens is I think that we have to sometimes get really up close and we might call granular with whatever's happening. So like, where do we feel it in our body? If we were to close our eyes, does it have a color? Is it heavy? Is it light? Does it feel like, Is it pulsating? Like explore that visceral, the very somatic reaction that you're having. First of all, because I think when you're having it, as you mentioned, it's like when you talk to a toddler that's angry. They don't even really know why they're angry. It's just an expenditure of energy.
Yep.
Like, it's kind of like they need to have a tantrum. And when you said and that's what people are doing, they're having tantrums, basically, whatever. But I think that they need to have that tantrum. And I think we have to allow ourselves to explore that. We have this feeling or this idea in our head that it's not civilized or it's not adult like. But basically, we need to, like, not express that, but actually explore that kind of 5-year-old within us for a moment and say, or for a few moments and say, okay, well, this is what I'm feeling and this is what it is and this is where it is in my body. And I want to scream for a moment. Okay, I'm in the privacy of my own home in the shower. I can scream for 5 minutes and no one's going to know. And I need to expend that energy or whatever. And then I can sit there and say, okay, then I can maybe explore it a little bit on a more intellectual side, but I've got to get rid of that energy. And it could be you have to move or you have to dance to get rid of that energy. Like, you have to, like, okay, I'm going to dance for 5 minutes to kind of release that energy. And then I can stop, and then I can pause, because I think sometimes we have, that visceral reaction has to be explored.
I really love the prescription, doctor.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So, how do we wrap? What kind of a bow do you want to put on this week's conversation?
Oh, gosh. What kind of bow? Maybe it's what I started with. Maybe choose one thing you can do. Maybe you can, next time you go to read something, or you read something, maybe before you respond, just pause for a moment. And it is, stop, basically. So stop. You know, see where you are, see how, look at it. And so stop, see where you are, take a breath.
Right.
And then, and then you can make a decision, then you can decide what's next. That would probably be my prescription.
Perfect. Well, I think it's been a great conversation, and I appreciate your time, energy, and co-creation of these conversations as we go forward. But the other thing is that's really important to me today is to just acknowledge how what a good friend you are and how much I appreciate you.
Good night, Bill.
Yeah, there's my life is different because you're in it. I mean, it really seriously is. And I think with that in mind, I want to advise everyone who's listening. If you're finding that the people you're in conversation with are mostly sharing complaints, go add at least one person that is just about expressing joy. Go find one place, one person that you can talk about really great things about that are happening in the world. You don't have to change all your friends at once. You don't have to change any of your friends, but give yourself the gift of having good feelings for a few minutes with somebody who has no agenda. Everyone has at least one of those friends. And they might be the kind of people that you also might want to tell them that your world works because they're in it.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, Bill, because I think that there is a point, I think, or hopefully there is a point in your life where you begin to choose the people who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard because all of a sudden people who were in your life or you, whatever. Not that you don't value them, but at the point where you are, you just realize that that's however you want to call it. It's not serving you in some way. Not in a negative way, but it's just not serving you anymore. And so, yeah, so I think that what you said is, find some people who you find life enhancing.
There's some homework for y'all. Thank you, Jan Jeremiah. I love you and I appreciate you. And I think we'll say goodbye at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, we are lighting the candle, a world that works. You're all part of it. And I will ask you, please go out and live your best life and come back and tell us all about it. Till next time.
Till next time.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a World That Works, part of the Xvadio podcast network. You can catch every episode of Lighting the Candle, as well as the rest of the network, at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.